It's been a great start to the season for Chelsea. Under their new coach Maurizio Sarri, they've gone unbeaten, playing fluid, attacking football. And it's no surprise that this has coincided with Sarri getting the best out of Eden Hazard after he stayed at the club following a long will-he-won't-he saga about a possible move to Real Madrid. But off the pitch, things are far from okay. Chelsea's Russian owner, Roman Abramovich, is reportedly looking to sell the club. Ever since buying the club in 2003 for £140 million, at a time when the club was on the verge of bankruptcy, he's transformed Chelsea into one of England's most successful clubs, delivering 5 Premier League titles, 5 FA Cups, 3 League Cups, 1 Europa League title, and in 2012, the cherry on the cake, the Champions League. 15 titles in 15 years. In total, he spent close to £1.5 billion. While Abramovich has kept a low profile in the press, he hasn't given an interview in the UK for over 10 years, he has been a regular fixture at Stamford Bridge, immersing himself in the minutiae of the club's on-pitch performances and off-the-pitch business. But a geopolitical scandal involving a nerve agent, an assassination attempt, and Russian President Vladimir Putin has seen him become, effectively, persona non grata in the UK, where he is now not allowed to work. Instead, he's taken citizenship in Israel and is now reportedly looking to offload Chelsea for £3 billion, which would be a world record sale price for a sports team. So, what went wrong, and what does this mean for the club's future? Well, to understand those questions, we must first go back to how Abramovich transformed himself from a Moscow rubber duck salesman into one of Putin's wealthiest and most loyal oligarchs. His origin story is well known. Abramovich was born into a poor Jewish family and was an orphan at 5. When the Soviet Union began to loosen its grip on private enterprise, Abramovich seized the opportunity and started a series of businesses. One involved the trade in toys, especially rubber ducks, out of an apartment he shared with his first wife in Moscow. But he didn't start making serious money until he moved into oil trading, and by 1993, Abramovich joined forces with Boris Berezovsky, a mathematical genius who'd made a fortune in trading Soviet-made cars. The two were involved in the now infamous Loans for Shares program, a scheme thought up by Russia's first democratically elected president Boris Yeltsin to secure a second term. The plan was simple. If Russia's new super-rich helped him get re-elected, they would have first dibs on Russia's vast and soon-to-be privatized natural resources. After Yeltsin's re-election, Berezovsky and Abramovich bought Sibneft for $100 million, in what Abramovich later admitted in a British court was a rigged auction. It's thought that the company's true worth was close to $3 billion. When Yeltsin had to step down due to ill health, Vladimir Putin was his chosen replacement. Berezovsky, as well as other oligarchs who'd enriched themselves during the Yeltsin years, didn't see Putin as much of a threat. But Abramovich quickly aligned himself with Putin, who'd promised that he would smash the oligarchs and bring their wealth back under state control. One by one, the fortunes of Yeltsin's oligarchs were taken, their assets seized by the state, and the oligarchs jailed. But not Abramovich. Putin demanded absolute loyalty if they were to keep their fortunes, and Abramovich complied. When he sold Sibneft in 2005, he did so with the Kremlin's blessing to Gazprom for $13.1 billion, making him one of the richest men in the world. Fast forward to March 2018, and Russia's relationship with the West is at its lowest point since the Cold War. Putin's increasing authoritarianism, Russia's invasion of eastern Ukraine, the annexation of Crimea, and alleged meddling in the 2016 US presidential election has brought about a huge raft of international sanctions focused on the super-rich. Abramovich had largely escaped sanction, but then came the attempted assassination of former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia in the English town of Salisbury. It was later concluded that Novichok, a Soviet-era nerve agent, was used, the first time a chemical weapon had been used on European soil since the Second World War. 2 more people were later poisoned by a perfume bottle that was thought to have been used in the Skripal incident. While Sergei and Yulia survived, a British citizen, Dawn Sturgis, would later die. Russia denied the attack, but the British government maintained that it had proof that Moscow was responsible. Eventually, 2 men were named as the suspected perpetrators. Alexander Petrov and Russian Borisov, both presumed to be aliases and both suspected members of Russian military intelligence, or the GRU. CCTV cameras showed them arriving in Salisbury twice and then quickly leaving. After their photos were released, the 2 gave a bizarre interview on Russia Today where they claimed they were merely travelling nutritional supplement salesmen interested in the spire of Salisbury's cathedral. Dozens of Russian diplomats were also expelled, and the British government announced that none of its ministers nor any members of the royal family would attend Russia's World Cup this summer. But opponents of Putin knew how to really punish him, not through traditional diplomacy, but through money. As Russia's highest-profile opposition figure, Alexei Navalny posted on Telegram shortly after the Salisbury incident, the unpleasant scenario for Putin would be if the English finally chuck out from their country dozens of our officials and oligarchs with their families and money. Two names he mentioned would be particularly familiar, Roman Abramovich and Alisher Usmanov, who recently sold his interests in Arsenal. London in particular had grown rich on Russian largesse, especially from those with close political ties to Putin, which Abramovich enjoyed. In the past, the British government was loath to move against the oligarch class, but the Skripal incident seemed to change the rules, and the British government announced its reviewing of all investor visas for Russian citizens. In May, the government delayed renewing Roman Abramovich's Tier 1 investor visa, designed to allow high-net-worth individuals from outside the EU to live and invest in the UK, making it impossible for Abramovich to work in the country. While the reasons weren't given, the timing of the news gave a clue. Abramovich promptly withdrew his application. And he'd had other visa issues too. In September, Abramovich abruptly cancelled plans to live in Switzerland. A Swiss court shed some light as to why. They ruled that a letter from the Swiss police that detailed reasons why Abramovich should be denied a residency visa could in fact be made public. Abramovich's lawyers had been fighting against the letter's public disclosure for 6 months. The police letter recommended that Abramovich be denied because there were suspicions that he'd been involved in money laundering and presumed contact with criminal organisations. They also had reason to believe that the root of his fortune was at least partially of illegal origin. No evidence was given by the police, at least not publicly, and Abramovich's Swiss lawyer denounced the release of the letter, saying any suggestion that Mr. Abramovich has been involved in money laundering or has had contacts with criminal organisations is entirely false. Mr. Abramovich has never been charged with participating in money laundering and does not have a criminal record. Abramovich did, however, have other options. As a Russian Jew, he had an immediate right to citizenship under Israel's law of return. Within a few days of arriving in Tel Aviv, he was handed an Israeli passport. While Abramovich is not banned from entering the UK, he can freely enter under his Israeli passport without a visa for up to 6 months, he is strictly prohibited from working, and the consequences were felt by Chelsea FC almost immediately. The club announced it would be pulling out from building its long-planned new stadium, one which was estimated to cost close to £1 billion due to an unfavourable investment climate. He has reportedly hired a US bank to broker Chelsea's sale. As ever, the question will be who he sells the club to, and Chelsea is now one of the most recognisable clubs and brands in world football. Whoever buys Chelsea will be buying a business in rude health, and on the pitch, the lack of certainty over the club's ownership seems to be having little effect.